Welcome to the Chrysalis Temple, a sacred portal where the quantum meets the mystical. We awaken timelines, dissolve limits, and embody the frequency of your highest self. Welcome, beautiful souls, to another episode of the Chrysalis Temple Podcast. On today's episode, we have the lovely, the very radiating like a beautiful divine light with calmness and peace, Gabrielle, who is going to take us on a journey about Kundalini mirror work, Kriya Yoga, and that is what she practices, Kriya Yoga practitioner. And she's gonna take us into really explanations of what Kundalini is, how that all works, and we're gonna get into the feminine aspect of it, the spiritual, energetic, and yeah, this is what we're gonna be doing today. So welcome, Gabrielle, and it is a pleasure to have you here. Lovely to connect with you, and just excited for you to share all your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really, really honored to do this. And yeah, Kundalini is such a vast topic that I think really needs decoding and explaining correctly to people. So yeah, I'm really excited to unleash.
Beautiful, beautiful. And with that, yes, can you take us through that? What is Kundalini? What is Kundalini mirror work? And how it is different from maybe what we hear traditional mirror work and just shadow work. And yeah, everything.
So yeah, the Kundalini energy, Kundalini Shakti, it's said to be a dormant energy, dormant in most of us. It stays awake until we are around 7 years young, which is kind of collaborating with the proven idea that we are in a hypnotic state, we're in a dream state, and from 0 until 7 years young. And the Kundalini is very much alive then, because the Kundalini is our subtle, creative, psychic aspect combined with primal, feminine, dancing, unraveling energy. So it's an unraveling of the mystery as the Kundalini can become awakened when we are adults, but through forced agitation, almost like if you have ever seen the Kundalini yoga movements, it's a lot of pulsing your spine back and forth, like you are using bandhas. So in Sanskrit, bandhas mean locks. There's Mula Bandha, Jaladhara Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, and these are locks which literally forces the energy of the root, which naturally goes down. It forces it to take an upward direction, which is forcing the Kundalini then to uncoil and to go up the chakras, meet the chakras in all their qualities, and it literally pierces through anything that is not in balance in that chakra, therefore allowing the coiled energy to unspiral, unravel its mystery, and meet what we call Shiva at the crown, which is masculine consciousness, divine masculine. So there's a lot to that if I was to go into it, like we would be here for like a million days. All of the chakras have different qualities. So you may find that your Kundalini, it might be in your solar plexus. You know, it might have unraveled just as far as the solar plexus, and maybe you're coming up against fears of integrity, or you're not feeling very energized, or your digestive system is sluggish. And so therefore the Kundalini has not yet pierced through that chakra and awakened it fully to its balance. So it's not always at the root. It depends where you're at in your life. And yeah, that energy is just freedom. It's just full blown creativity combined with being able to anchor it into your life. And that's why the masculine and the feminine are to meet as they rise up the Sushumna, the central channel, central nadi through the spine. So that's Kundalini. Coming into mirror work, mirrors are divine tools that have been used for centuries and centuries in different ritual practices, whether it is having a small mirror on your altar when you do a manifestation technique, or mirror gazing, yoni gazing, beauty gazing in the mirror. There's so many aspects to it, and it's just such a divine, magical tool. But when it comes to using it in the kind of mirror work that I offer, we kind of see it as like a recording device. So a mirror contains, especially one within your home, it contains the stories of every single thing you've ever thought into it, every single person that's ever walked past it. And it has a lot to do with body image and how we see ourselves, how we see our lives. So in mirror work, combined now with Kriya, Kundalini Yoga, we use the Kundalini Yoga to open the body, to open up the spine, to open up the channel. Kundalini Yoga is specifically designed to help us want to meditate. So you're getting more into Raj Yoga, Royal Yoga, Mind Yoga, Crown Yoga aspects as you go higher up the kriyas, because kriyas, there's so many different levels to it. You know, it combines breath, it combines movement, it combines the bandhas, it combines really mentally triggering yourself through different mudras and holding them and holding your arms up. So there's levels to the kriyas, and yeah, this yoga helps you to want to meditate. So that's why it's really amazing to do the kriya and then to go into the mirror work where we really send what I like to call scientific prayers into the mirror. So it's like you're channeling affirmations to yourself whilst holding the gaze, holding the witness of yourself, and you're rewriting the story. The mirror, it's a portal, the same way your body is a portal. So we access the portal of the mirror to go deeper into the body. And another really powerful thing about the kind of mirror work that I'm offering from that stance is that when you are witnessing yourself healing versus when you're just going about your life, kind of, you know, listening to affirmations here and there, doing meditation here and there, when you're actually witnessing yourself in real time, looking at yourself in the mirror, saying these things, there's something that happens in the subconscious mind that's like, oh, okay, like she's actually doing it or he's actually doing it. So it's really powerful in that sense. And that's how I combine the ancient knowledge of the mirror with the school and lineage of Kundalini Yoga.
Wow, so much, so beautiful. And I have so many, I think, follow-up questions on that as well. You mentioned how uh, one of the things that I wanted to get into, you said that like forced Kundalini, right? Like when you're moving the spine. That's actually something I do in quantum flow. Not that we force it so much, but we do a lot of actual spine work. So that's what I kind of wanted to ask you about. So, like you said, forced. Do you think Kundalini should be forced, or how do we go about? Because there's so many things right now around Kundalini, and I think, like from my what I've seen a lot of is that Kundalini is not a thing to really force to awaken, like, or are you talking about small doses where you gradually get up to it, like you mentioned, through the chakras?
Mhm. So that's a really, really good question. And it's something I really anchor in with my clients is there's two kinds of no's in any form of yoga, to be honest, because, you know, I practice also quite intense levels of contortionism as well. And then, so any kind of yoga, depending on what level you're coming in, I like to define it as two kinds of no's. So there is the no where you are resisting expanding your consciousness. Stretching in any form is literally stretching your consciousness. There's something that happens when we move our bodies, shake up the elements, when we stretch and elongate our bodies, we are pulling on sacred geometry. We're pulling on all the threads within us. And that can be good or it can be not so beneficial. So there's the no where you are knowing that you're resisting yourself and your expansion. And then there is the no, the wise no from the body that is saying, like, no, don't do this because this is going to cause like an injury or maybe too much of a stretch of the consciousness. So when it comes to forcing Kundalini, absolutely not. There is a lot of teachers that say Kundalini Yoga is one of the most dangerous yogas because it is a fast track to either psychic awareness or psychosis. Which I myself, you know, going through kind of an ignorant Kundalini awakening, I would say like I kind of really hold the keys for people that are trying to force it or are wanting to do it as like a fashion trend, because I came into Kundalini yoga practice when I was just 18
Oh, wow.
and I started practicing it. And, my mind was kind of like, oh, well, I don't want to do the same yoga as everybody else. So I'm just going to do this really like
Mm.
unique taboo one. That was kind of my way of trying to be different. And I got on the mat, I started practicing it. It felt really cool to me because it was like a workout, but it was doing something with my mind and helping me wake up. But then after about a year of doing it just on my own with no guidance, with no mentor, no anything, I started to experience really horrible things like in the dream realms, in the astral, where I would be pulled out of my body spontaneously. And it was because of the level of consciousness that I was rising to, but yet not able to hold it in my body. And the Kundalini is, it's the feminine. So it's the void, it's the mystery, it's the black hole, it's the womb, it's the anything and everything and nothing. And there's no bounds to which it can't go. And so that energy, once you kind of, it's like pressing a button saying heal, but then maybe you're not ready to heal everything and your mind can't catch up with it. So that energy can unleash very quickly and you might not be able to handle it. So it's always really important, if you are doing it on your own, to start simple, to really question yourself, to know where you're at in your life. And if you're not doing it on your own and you're willing to do it with a mentor, to also seek out the right mentor, because a lot of people are using this Kundalini energy as sexual exploitation online of recent, which is a really dangerous thing, and only a tiny fractal of what Kundalini actually is. So it's really important to be wise, and discerning in yourself and wherever you go externally.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for that explanation. I think that's something that needs to be talked about a lot when it comes to Kundalini,
Mhm.
because, yeah, I've also heard stories of if you go like forcing it too fast, too much, you can end up in mental institutions because of it. And I want to kind of also circle back because I said like I have so many follow-up questions and I just love this and the wisdom coming from you. So one of the things that you also mentioned about where the energy, the coiled energy is not necessarily at the base of your spine. It depends where you are. So would you say also with each like as you go through life, as you continue to evolve and do these practices, that you're basically awakening the Kundalini at each of the chakra levels, and therefore you can have multiple Kundalini awakenings through your lifetime, right?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm really multifaceted. So the Kundalini Shakti, she does start at the womb, at the spine, and then, the earth also has a Kundalini, which is a whole other level, that we can also, bring through us. And we are always bringing through us to answer that question. Like, you don't have to practice Kundalini yoga to awaken your Kundalini. Like, there are a lot of people that are just really in their creative energy and their creative life force, and they're there with it. So it's not always something you have to physically awaken. Just as there are many paths that lead us home, it's the same with that Kundalini energy. um but yeah, it's in different levels for different people, and also depending on where you're at in your life. If you're going through grief, the Kundalini might immediately go back down the spine and coil there in the womb, or you might have a really opening grief process, and it's at your heart. There's so many different levels to it, and you can always mirror it to the chakras, to how you feel in your body. Even if you have like a mysterious pain or an ache, the Kundalini might be there, like trying to crash through, but you're not allowing it in your character development, in your life, in your habits, in what you're eating, and all of these holistic things.
Right. So that again brings us back to the body and our inner inner knowing, the connection to the body, how it's so important to connect with the body at every stage and to listen to what it wants. And like you said, when you're at that point, yeah, and you feel that, how to really ease into it and surrender so the process would flow. I love that. And
Mm-hmm.
you also mentioned about kriya and your work with kriya, right? How there's many levels to it and how powerful it is as well. Let's talk about that a little bit. So, like, what called you to this path of kriya yoga and the transformations that it created in your life?
So there's two kinds of kriya. So I don't want to mix them up. I don't know too much about Kriya Yoga itself, but Kundalini Kriya is
Kundalini
what
kriya.
I practice. So, yeah, there is Kriya Yoga and then there's Kundalini Kriya Yoga. So, Kriya literally means action for outcome.
Mm,
So, it's like a cosmic earth equation. That's why Kundalini Yoga you will see in very specific traditional kriyas. They're very much like 26 of this frog squat, and then immediately after Venus lock pose or like whatever you're doing, it's very methodical. So it's not like a completely in the feminine flow where you're just doing what you want, which is beautiful and amazing. But as we know, we are in a world of science and 1+1 = 2. And the Kundalini Kriya yoga works like that. Like there's Kriyas for opening your thyroid, maintaining your metabolism, opening up the crown, helping neurosis, helping menstrual pain, helping to attract prosperity, money, abundance, healing the heart. There's so much to it that's physical, scientific, mental, neurological. And so, as I said, there's levels to it. And what really called me to it was that it was different. Like, I didn't want to go and be like a on the trend of like yoga, if that makes sense at that point. I've kind of always looked for something that is different. I kind of rebel trends, which is like, it can be a good thing or a bad thing. Um, and my life, like really what called me to it was that my relationship with exercise was not good. I come from a background of an extreme eating disorder when I was younger, and I was only just coming out of that around the age of 18. And I was seeking to find completely new things on my path so that I could fire and wire new neurons and really change my life. And so I found Kundalini yoga through that, and it's massively helped in my healing process. It addresses neurosis, it addresses body dysmorphia, it addresses like everything within you that is blocking you from being a pure channel for creator, for source. It will penetrate through it, and you will see it like when you get off the mat, something will come up to trigger you, or something, a miracle will come to show you and reward you like you've done your work. So it's an extremely cleansing process. It's very Phoenician.
yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful, and I'm so glad that it has helped you in so many different ways. And I love how you said that it, after the practice, you go out there and you will be shown whether you've done the work or you're seeing triggers. How do you think, or what is the approach that you take when you're off the mat and you're not practicing and a trigger comes in? What is your method to kind of, I don't know, regulate yourself, to bring yourself back to see that trigger? Like, how do you deal?
I don't really know how to explain that one because the Kundalini yoga, for me personally, it kind of transforms you so much in the practice that you witness yourself almost as an observer reacting to things differently in life. And it's always so holistic. I could say it's yoga, but it could be that I started taking adaptogenics. It could be that I met a certain person. It could be so much. Like it's always like a holistic thing. I would not recommend to someone doing intensive Kundalini yoga and then eating McDonald's every day. So it's like a holistic
Right.
thing, something I do directly recognize, particularly when I commit to a sadhana. So in kriya, a sadhana is like a devoted ritual that you do every day. And we have different levels as to how many days you can practice one kriya for different outcomes that you want. So like 40 days is to break a habit. I might get the numbers wrong. 40 days is to break a habit. 90 is to add in a new habit. 120 is to become the new habit and to really embody that and live in that. And then 1,000 days is to become the kriya itself. So it kind of becomes this lotus that you can sit on whenever you enter the kriya. You are able to access deep states of samadhi, dhyana, which is like deep consciousness. And you can just sit into that kriya. It becomes a living, breathing transmission through you. So there's levels to that too. But what I would say is that you just see it rewiring your entire life. Like you become more of your true self, more of a pure channel, and reacting to things doesn't really seem like the best option anymore.
Mm, beautiful. I love how for you it just through the practice alone, it's completely rewiring you so much that the triggers are almost, like it doesn't trigger you anymore. They're completely out of they lose their power pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, like everybody has their days and everybody has their moments.
Of course.
But what I would say is like once you know, you can't unknow. And you can step outside of yourself and watch yourself taking an old habit or an old reaction and just watch it like a movie and be like, wow, am I really doing that? So there's like a level of self-inquiry that begins to happen. Um, and it's really like you can't really mess up on yourself because you just are so aware of it that it it's hard to sometimes.
Mhm.
And again, we all have our days, we all have our moments. Like nothing is ever as we would like to perceive it to be as perfect. But having a practice, whether it's Kundalini yoga or your own way of finding movement in the body and healing yourself, like it really holds you accountable for growth and character development.
Yeah. And I'm keep getting this, like, with this practice that you become so present in the moment, because a lot of times I think our triggers come from the past or our anxieties about the future. But if you're in that present moment all the time, it cannot pretty much trigger you like that anymore. You're right there in that moment, in the now, how we should be, right? um yeah. And that's how you become that observer of your reality, and you completely on that quantum level transform and rewire yourself for a different. Beautiful. Beautiful. And talking about all of that, like you were just talking about accessing deeper states of consciousness and awareness. And so let's talk a little bit about the breath and the nervous system and how all of that relates to getting to these higher states of consciousness within Kriya Yoga.
Yeah, I mean, you totally know this with your breath work and like you know how transformative breath work is. And funnily enough, I really would say out of all of the different techniques of pranayama and movement and asanas and bandhas and mudras and mantras that Kundalini Yoga kind of bridges together, the most transcendental experiences that I've ever had in Kundalini Yoga itself is through the breath work. Um, and the breath work combined with postures is probably enhancing it too, but it's the breath that has really taken me, to those spaces where, because a lot of the time you are in a gaze lock. So, you might be it's called a dristi. So you might be looking at the tip of your nose, or your eyes are 1/10 closed, or you're looking mostly just between the brows at the pineal gland. But there's different dristis. And yeah, like in those states, I've definitely seen colors, mandalas. I've tapped infinity for a moment, said hi, and then come back. And It's amazing. It's wonderful. There is a warning though with any kind of practice about, experience seeking and
Mhm.
really just only going there to see amazing colors and wonderful mandalas and talk about all the visions you had and then not applying it to your life. So I don't really go into the practice seeking that. It's more like if it comes, it comes. I just find a level of peace and alignment in doing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And do you feel that it helps to really truly also rewire the nervous system as you're doing these breath, like the breath work and everything? Do you feel that it's really like not just
Yeah,
regulating but rewiring, right? Like,
yeah, 100%. As I said, with like the different sadhana levels you can do, um, I'd say doing the same kriya every single day for an amount of days is going to then contribute to a more solid level of rewiring, not just regulating, but in itself, just doing any sadhana of body movement, of devotion, of prayer, of whatever it is for you, it will rewire the nervous system because we respond to habit, we respond to repetition. There's so many different facets of our brain working together, and the most powerful thing is it's recording everything we do every moment. And so a lot of what we do it on repeat anyway, and that's why we're living how we're living right now in whatever state of mind or being or materiality you are. So it definitely helps to rewire, not just regulate. And I've seen it in my own life, like even my eyes are lighter since 2020 when I started on this journey. Like,
wow.
yeah, everything changes, and you look back at it over time with so much appreciation. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can feel that, like you said, that life force coming back and actually flowing and moving through you, not just getting stuck somewhere.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of people ask me, because when you get like yogis or like really flexible people, because yes, I'm really flexible, but a lot of people consider, oh, I must have like done gymnastics when I was younger, or I must have been just born flexible or double jointed or whatever. And when I first came to the yoga mat, like I could not even lift my leg up without pain. Like I had such horrible, like this, my knees, I was only 19, and yeah, I could not kneel down without being in agony. And the knees really represent surrender, they represent dropping to your knees in surrender. And so at the age of 19, I was not where I am now, so it's almost like I've aged backwards. And that's really a reminder that, working on it is the process. And no one just lands there, no one just gets there. And when you get to see the transformation over time, it's undeniable. It's just
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And with that, then I want to get into how doing these practices a little bit deeper into that because, like you said, you were at the age of 19, you couldn't, you were in pain, physical pain from moving your body. And that's where I want to get into like emotional clearing and the trauma within the body because obviously like when we do this stuff like how does explain how this through doing this practice how it helps you release this trauma and the clear these emotions out of the body because the body keeps the score, right? We keep all of these things within the body. We think we're aging and that's a normal thing to happen to us, that we don't move as much and that we're not as flexible, but it's really just trauma, right? And doing these practices. So walk us through that kind of.
Yeah. So, I mean, bringing the mirror work back into it too,
Yeah.
because that's really, really powerful. And that's something that, I mean, going through anorexia and being in and out of hospitals from literally age 12 to 16, 17. looking at myself in the mirror and really taking a good look would sometimes be more powerful than even moving my body, because I'm moving stories, I'm shifting energy, I'm shifting all the molecules that have combined together to create whatever story I was living in the way I was perceiving myself. But anything you do with absolute intention and consciousness to heal, it will heal you. And I think that's the really scary thing for a lot of people. Like, me and my friends, we gather women's circles in Barbados where I live, and you get a lot of people that they'll just come to try it out because it's
Mhm.
cool. And, we'll get a message a couple of days later, like, hey, I'm going through this, and this, because they're not expecting that trauma will come up. It's like, again, if you press a button in your body, don't expect it to not react. It might take a little bit of time depending on how deep the trauma is, but it will come up. And this is why it's a quantum equation on Earth.
Right.
Um, so clearing the trauma will absolutely happen and has to happen if you're working with such intense energy practices. And that's where we come back to that first question, about like, are you ready? Can your mind hold it? Because the body is way more intelligent than the mind, way more. Like the body knows your destiny and the mind wants to know it. That's what I always teach people, is like the body already has the entire story that you've written over yourself and also that God wrote into you, and the mind is seeking to know. So the body's got it, but
Yeah.
the mind become incredibly traumatized, finding out things that maybe it didn't want to know, or that didn't fit its narrative, or that feels too much or too overwhelming, or maybe even too little. So yeah, that clearing will happen, and it has to. The body is so intelligent. It knows what it needs to be healthy. That's why it knocks on our door with symptoms. That's why we get anxious, or we get really excited, or we get these emotions. It's the body communicating and trying to regulate itself constantly. And it will continue to do that even if you're on your deathbed. Literally, if you are on your deathbed dying, that means the body is still trying to save you. It's communicating to you through the pain, through whatever's going on. So, yeah, you have to really be ready for that one with the traumatic clearing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, definitely being ready, but sometimes, when it comes knocking on your door, whether you're ready or not, you're like, well, you're faced with two choices, right? Either continue in that agony or change and clear the trauma. And I love that you brought in the mirror work to that as well, to clear the trauma, because it's more of it just popped into my head, you talking about mirror work and how you're really working with energy and pretty much portals, and how it holds all the consciousness. It's literally like the quantum field, and you're right there, tapping into different realities, bringing in, pulling out, taking back, and you're just like restructuring it on that quantum level to pull in the reality that where you're healthy, where you're healed, where you're, all these things. I love that. I love that so much. And I love also how you mentioned about the body. The body really does hold all the answers. We're so, I think, right now, so used to relying on our mind, which is more of the ego, and pushing our body to through many different things, and ignoring it and pushing it and really not listening to it. And I love the wisdom that you brought in about that, where we really, I think, should be more focused on our body and what it is telling us than simply relying on our mind for all the answers. I love that. I love that
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
I love that so much. And yeah, what else did I want to ask you? So you were talking about the readiness also. When the person is ready, they will go through this. They will, once they're ready to go through that transformation. So what are some of the signs that a person is actually ready to
Mm.
transform, to change, to take that responsibility in their own lives?
I think that kind of mirrors back to what I was saying about like the two different no's. Like, I think sometimes someone will get so fed up with where they're at, like just so tormented by their own reality, their own thoughts, the people around them, that they will free willingly make the change. Um, and that's an amazing thing because I feel like that, God, creator, doesn't stop talking to us, but sometimes if we free willingly drown it out, it will get quieter and quieter because our ego gets louder and louder. So there's that side of it where you kind of take the reins of your life and listen to your destiny, um, and start clearing the space to hear it more. But then there's also the dreams and the subtle signs and the synchronicities, that if someone has been more naturally open to it in their life, even if they're going through trauma or a cycle or a struggle, those signs will come through louder and louder and louder until you kind of have no choice but to go with it. And like for me, it was really interesting how I started to I like wake up isn't my most favorite word to say it, but I guess people know what I mean when I say that.
Mhm.
Um, I was always creative. I was always naturally open. I was deeply studying psychology in school and history and all of these things which use my analytical mind. And I was still struggling with the eating disorder. This was only when I was like 17, so just before I started with the Kundalini Yoga. And for me, I had one of those absolutely esoteric, out of this world experiences where an angel came to me, and I was fully exposed in my psychology obsessed mind to the reality that there are other realms, there are other worlds, there are other beings. And I could have gone mad, I could have, but I was like, okay, this is really making me shit myself right now, but I need to look into what this is. And then that's how that world opened for me. And it very conveniently opened only 6 months before COVID hit the world. And I think had I gone into that period of that pandemic with my completely psychology based mind, straightforward, going to university, not thinking anything more for my life, I would have been effed, you know? So
Yeah.
it came at the perfect time, and I listened to it, and I was scared. And the idea that there was other worlds was absolutely crazy for me to experience, but that's how it happened for me. But for other people it's different. And God always speaks to us in our language, in the way we can receive it. And for me, after that happened, I still stayed in my psychology brain. Like I went and studied Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza and people that are able to neurologically explain what's happening and give a scientifically proven theory as to how angels and God and quantum realms and law of attraction and all of this stuff exists. So I was still able to be safe and understand, but it took a level of being willing to step into new knowing,
Mhm.
which is actually ancient, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was you said, like people you were studying like Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, doing all the things, and then went deeply into such ancient knowledge that already explains it. I feel like it originally explains it on such a scientific level, right? We're just people like you mentioned, Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, who else you mentioned, they just explain it in a more modern language for us to understand easier. But I feel like the ancient, like everything that you've studied, I don't know what exactly you've studied, like you said, I mean, which ancient texts, like for Kundalini, Kriya, and all of that, I feel like the science is already there. We just don't know how to decode it that well. Like it explains the spiritual and the scientific. You
Yeah.
yeah.
I like to see science as just like, science is only correct because spirit is correct, because spirit's always been there, creation has always been there. And human beings have taken this amazingly beautiful, phenomenal fascination with explaining things through biology, through neurology, through theology, philosophy, all the EEEs, like we've taken fascination, and it's beautiful. And it's also amazing because for every person that starts to feel the calling of creator, of their true soul, of their destiny, and weaving their destiny through free will as well, you have so many different doorways you can go through to help you feel safe and ground in understanding what's happening, which I think is extremely important, like to
Mhm.
be just a realm of um spirit, 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 with no scientific grounding and no idea of what you're going to do with that is very unhealthy. Sometimes we go there, but you have to keep coming back.
Yeah.
Otherwise you miss being human.
Yeah. Yeah. Which you bring up a very good point right now that's bringing kind of coming up in my mind. Like you mentioned, it's we can't just be flying out in in the spiritual world for too long. We still have to come back and ground it, and that's the whole experience here, being deeply connected with the spiritual yet grounded in reality and in our body, so that we can still continue to have this human experience and actually do something in this world and bring transformation and change into this world that I think we need so badly right now. I mean, we're in the midst of transformation. I feel like everything
Yeah,
slowly falling apart to be rebuilt again. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's beautiful. And so yeah, so like you were saying, so for a person to be they what you were saying, that to truly just tune into yourself to see what those messages for you are in order to start the transformation process.
Yeah, and as I said, like from my experience, just being around so many people who also started moving deeper into their calling around the same time as me, or even just I have a lot of really
Hmm.
beautiful people in my life that are like a couple of decades older than me, and it's like spirit's always sending me people who are wiser because I'm always calling for, yeah, I want the knowledge straight away. I don't like beating around the bush. Um, so I think I get a lot of, like, when people call me wise, I have to give credit to the wise ones around me because I really try to inherit that. And what I've seen a pattern of, again, is that God will speak to you in exactly the language you need. If butterflies mean something for you, God's going to come with loads of butterflies. If it's, you know what I mean? Like it's so
Yeah.
many different ways. And sometimes those synchronicities that come to us, you will try to explain it to someone else and they just won't get it. Because it's like between you and God, it's between you and spirit, between you and your inner knowing. Um, and that makes the path deeply personal, which is always reminding you to come back inside yourself too, which is really great.
Hmm. Yeah, coming back to yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, so tell me a little bit more about maybe a practice that someone might do for themselves to better connect with that inner knowing, to really see the signs, how would you suggest that for somebody who, let's say, is completely disconnected from their body, all of this, and things are happening and they're just like, they're clueless. What do I do? How do I do? What would you suggest for a person like that?
So one of my mentors, like sometimes people say something and I'll just remember it forever, like just one phrase. And one of my mentors said, silent meditation can heal anything. And I do deeply believe that. As much as I move my body a lot, like I think these yogic techniques, even certain breath techniques, they're more for someone who not like advanced, but someone who is already on the path. Whereas for someone who is maybe just beginning and like really disconnected, they probably never even sit with themselves and ask themselves, how am I? They probably never take a silent moment to be like, wow, I wonder if there's more than what's outside of me, and I'm just going to go inside myself right now. If I think back to myself, like when I was studying and just like my life was an absolute chaos, and I thought I was on the right path, and I was having the eating disorder, and just thinking there's one way to life, I don't recall ever sitting down and just closing my eyes and going inside myself unless I was going to sleep. So silent meditation is such a powerful tool. And it can be used at any point in anyone's journey. But for someone beginning, it will really start to unlock doors. Um, and it's an extremely hard thing to do. Like, even for me, some days, even for many of us, it depends on your state. But yeah, just closing your eyes. And I'd say the most simple thing to do is just look at the space between the brows and just try to stay there for 10 minutes and watch what happens.
Mm, mm. That is, I can imagine it being very, like I've also doing breath work and my own practices, and I'm just thinking how that would be for a person who's never been connected to their body, how much, but yeah, it would be very powerful. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And
For
then affirmations too. I mean, I did really start my journey with affirmations, although now I look back and I see you can't just always chuck new things on top of old things because you're still adding to the pile. So there is a level of like deeper excavation that needs to happen. But I would say that working with my subconscious, like, listening to affirmations as I fell asleep or saying a prayer for having a really good day just as I woke up, those hypnagogic, hypnopumpic
Mhm.
states between sleep and wake are really powerful for kind of effortless transformation because you're really working with that. For most of us, 80 to 90% of our subconscious is running the show in the day. And we think we have so much control, but there's a default happening. And I
Yeah.
would say the more we wake up and start to take the reins and start to co-create with Creator on our destiny and our calling, the percentage goes down. Like I would say, 5 years ago, 90% of my subconscious was running the show, and now I would say maybe 70%. So I feel like it goes down the more conscious you
Mhm.
become, what you're
Yeah.
creating and your intentions. But affirmations is a great way to start. Subconscious work. Yeah.
Subconscious work. Yeah, beautiful. I love that. And yeah, I would say the what you mentioned with the subconscious pretty much running the show, and uh once you start to work with that, you pretty much also like you install new programs. So now instead of having your subconscious working against you, right? It's
Mhm.
working for you instead of running the show in these limiting beliefs and programs that are self-sabotaging and harming to you. You in- install new ones to help you become healthier, more energized, more successful, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, I just want to ask you another question about, so if you could share another like message, a sacred insight, a code download for everybody, what would you want to share with the world, with women especially, because I think we haven't touched on the feminine that much, but
Yeah.
getting into that, I mean, this is for the women. We're getting into that, talking about these practices, regulating our nervous system, Kundalini being our feminine, energy. Yeah, what messages would you have?
This is the one question that I looked at and I was like, oh my gosh. I'm on the spot. I would say, like, for me at this point in my life, for the first time ever, if you'd said the word God to me a few years ago, I wouldn't have liked to hear it. Like I've really been um reestablishing my relationship with what creator is. And there's an undeniable question that comes through when weaving in the feminine and the connection to Jesus and the ascended masters that walk this earth. I just have this deep feeling within me that God would not create man and woman and then be like, oh yeah, a man's going to save the world. So I think there has to be a space for the feminine, for the woman. And if we go into, scripture and biblical information, it doesn't make sense that there's only a few sentences about one of the most powerful priestesses that we know to be Mary Magdalene in the Bible. It doesn't make sense that there would only be a few sentences. So we can see for, the women that are listening, there's clearly a methodical suppression of women and our feminine energy. Even with the Kundalini, it's natural for us to say, oh, it's coiled and it's at the bottom of the spine, when it should naturally be rising up. So even the victory of this journey of rising the Kundalini, it should be risen anyway. It's like she's meeting the masculine there, and then, they travel up and down together, but it should be a free flow. So I would say for women, like really start to study all the parts of you that are suppressed simply for being feminine. And it will take you really, really deep because it goes into every single area of the earth, from the suppression of certain medicines that are feminine, the suppression of holistic healing, the suppression of emotions. Women are always taught like, oh yeah, you have a lot of emotions, but even though they give space for you saying you have a lot of emotions, it's said in a suppressing way as if it's too much. So it's hard to wrap that in one message other than to just really study the feminine, like from every angle that you can. That again, God speaks to you in your own language. So if you are religious, study it biblically. If you are scientific, study the feminine biology. If you are, tracking your moon cycle, study it from that way. And yeah, many doors will open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love how you weaved so many things into that answer with really bringing in the biblical and the feminine and the Kundalini and just so much there, especially. And yeah, something I wanted to say on that, I have to come back to that because there was so much. I love how you brought in Mary Magdalene and Jesus, and especially the biblical, what you said, that how it has been intentionally suppressed, right? There is so many women right now being called to Mary Magdalene and her story because it has been suppressed for so long, and studying things like the Mary Magdalene gospel,
Mm-hmm.
right? To have more of that insight. And yeah, and the mention, like I said, there's a lot of things there. I love how you brought that up. And my suggestion would be from the biblical study, the Gnostic texts and the Mary Magdalene gospel all together. It gives so much insight into esoteric, spiritual, right? What is not in the canonical scriptures. And then you said with God, how could God, like created man and woman, but then be like, oh, man is gonna save the world? Well, what is your stance on God actually being a feminine force, not just, I mean, God altogether is everything and nothing, and it's such a concept that you can't even really, as much as you even connect to God, I don't think you can have an explanation for it. But feeling that the feminine energy, as women are the ones in that create, that bring in souls into this world, right? They're the ones that connect, that bridge the realities from the spirit to the material and they birth souls into this world. So does that make sense for you, God being more of a goddess than just God? How
I
does that?
think conceptualizing it is something that you can either be at peace with the fact that you can't explain it, and there's certain things we can't explain, we can only feel. Like, I don't feel like God is either man or woman. I know we have this, like, we say him with a capital H or her with a capital H. It's like this beautiful androgynous, but then beyond even man and woman, it's like acetoma, beyond light, beyond dark. And man and woman were both created in God's image, which says there is an aspect of man and woman in God. And yeah, it's a question, it's such a theological question that I think people who try to answer it and they're so sure about their answer of it are kind of in delusion,
Yeah.
because to try to explain God is just how can you be sure? We're in the mystery. And I think some people in life as well, for me, for the first 3-4 years of self-realization, I was very connected to the feminine, to earth, to goddess, to this idea that God is absolutely a woman. And then this past recent year of my life, like, I've really been surrendering to the masculine aspect, to provision, to more of the scriptural word. And I feel that masculine hand in my life, but with absolute recognition that the feminine helped me to get there. So maybe in a year I'll be back honoring only the earth, like, who knows. But coming back to what you said again about the intentional removal of the feminine and the stories of Magdalene and the circle of Marys, in the Bible, it's kind of funny because, the feminine knows, like the priestesses of the lineages of priestesses and the Gnostic women, and those who have carried those keys, they know that it's written in their bones, it's written in their blood, it's literally written in the ink of their blood, and it's passed through by this red thread, by this golden thread, by whatever different spins on the story you want to take. And so the joke is kind of on those who removed it, thinking that just removing the text and burning the stories that were put in physical place could remove the memories and the body. And I think a lot of women are, and men are, waking up right now to realize, like, the true codex is in their body, the true scripture is in their body, and that's something they can't destroy, because they can't destroy a soul.
Yeah.
Like, it might be forgotten, but it will eventually be remembered. And so that's a really funny part I'm finding in all of this.
Yeah, I love everything that you mentioned, especially like with God. And I agree with you. I agree with you. I have this, yeah, like there is no way to truly know God, even as much as we try to bring meaning and explanations and concepts, and I don't think we can fully do that. So I love that. And I love that you mentioned that, yeah, you cannot, coming back to all of the body work, Kundalini, working with the body as a portal and holding all the codes, all the really DNA, truly the DNA within the body and the cosmic DNA, and it is awakening in so many women right now through all of this. And there's, yeah, as much as they try to erase it and suppress it, it is coming back right now, full force. And I just kind of wanted to ask you because I think you mentioned, I don't know, if you're open to talk about this because you're right now you went to visit Avalon, as much as I understand. So if you
I'm in,
want to share about that, because it's so right on point on what we just talked about. So your experience with that.
it's super on point. Yeah, so I'm in Avalon right now. I'm helping a really dear friend with her exhibition. There's some of her art behind me. And I come every year. It's literally my favorite time of the year. Like, this land itself, like Avalon, there's so many stories, so many. And I usually prefer actually to listen to the people that I meet here, like the people that the land seems to gift me when I come, rather than people online. Like Glastonbury, Avalon is really that kind of space where I don't know, just I feel like if you're landing here and you don't live here as well, you probably recognize it more. But people just come into your field and they'll just enlighten you with a story. Like I found out last year from someone that Jesus apparently came here when he was 12 with his uncle to like learn and study. And then also King Arthur and Guinevere are apparently like buried in the abbey. And these are things I just didn't even know about my own homeland. Like I left the UK to move to Barbados literally with my middle finger up. I was like, I'm never coming back. This is a ghetto. And, then I came back and I came to Glastonbury, and there's so much magic in this land, so much. And the feminine is really, really alive here, like really alive. Whenever I come back here, I always feel the tug of Virgin Mary and Mary Magdalene, like in synchronicities, just so many signs, ladybugs, red cars, all of that magic. And yeah, so it's really on point that we're talking about that right now.
Yeah, and I love that you're on that land right now. And I've never been, but of course, like I've heard the stories of everything and being connected to that land, to this energy right now, to, yeah, Mary Magdalene has, as I've heard, that she traveled through there, like the Rose lineage
Mm.
also is deep in that place. So absolutely magical place, and you get to be there right now and bring back some codes for us, like you've said, that you just meet beautiful souls there that bring you all of these messages and whatnot, and I love that.
Yeah.
So beautiful, beautiful way, yeah, that you're there right now. And on that, I just kind of want to also highlight you and your work, and what you do in a way that people can, first of all, find you. Instagram, I'll put it on here once it's, but if you can tell people your Instagram once again, maybe new offers that you have right now coming in, something you want to share, other offers. What are your offers? What are the ways that people can work with you? If, finding this, loving everything we've talked about here, what resonates, and yeah, let us know.
Yeah, thank you for that space. So, yeah, my Instagram is Liona Gabrielle, so it'll be in the footnotes, but it's LIONAGABRIELLE. And most of what I offer right now is just very private, one-to-one work, Kundalini Yoga, usually, an initiation through the chakras, whether it's the seven or the nine, Kundalini mirror work, 4-week courses, and I do oracle card readings as well. So it's a lot of private work. I've really stepped back from the one to many idea. It just doesn't always sit with me because I feel like I can't access everybody at once. And I know this one to many idea is blown off massively for people, but for me, I'm more of a, yeah, uh, intimate person. So I also do have a Teachable where I have courses with Kundalini mirror work and the Shaktivation, the Shakti chakra activations through the kriyas. So you can access a bit more recorded work there. And that's all in my link tree in my Instagram. So yeah.
Okay, so the best way to get to you would probably be Instagram, and then from there, lots of ways to work with you one-on-one and courses. Beautiful. I love that. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And really, it's been a pleasure to have you here to share your wisdom. So much knowledge, so much wisdom, and it feels like, all of this for you is just so natural. It's part of, who you are. It's really radiating through you, and feeling the embodiment of the work that you do. It's truly a pleasure. So thank you. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for being
Thank
here. Truly
Yeah.
a pleasure.
And I'm excited to see what this does for you. Like, I know this is a big activation for your throat chakra and like everything we've worked on. Like, this is amazing. I'm so proud of you. And yeah,
Thank you.
thank you for just opening up the conversation. And I pray that so many people get golden keys from it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So thank you guys, and we will see you again next time on another episode. Bye bye.